activated Starseed of Gaia. What is entering your life right now is not a small adjustment. The Arcturian field observers have already mapped this arrival, and what they see moving into your field is massive. I am Auriela, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light, transmitting now on behalf of the Arcturian field observers. What you are about to receive was authorized by them and is being delivered through me. They have already cataloged the exact configuration entering your timeline in this present window, and they instructed me to reach you now before the full weight of it lands, so you understand what it is before it asks everything of you. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what is arriving, why its intensity is not a warning but a confirmation, and what the Arcturian field observers already know about the threshold you are standing inside. But here is the first revelation: what you have been feeling as pressure, disorientation, or the sense that something enormous is close. That was not anxiety. That was recognition. Your field was reading the arrival before your mind could name it. The algorithm did not create this moment. It only delivered it. Your field brought you here because the arrival is already in motion. This is not just information, it is a live transmission for those already inside the shift. The Arcturian field observers are not describing something coming in the future. They are naming what is landing now, in the present moment, inside your timeline. The shift is no longer approaching. It is here, and you were reached at the exact second it crossed into your active field, because what is entering your life is too significant to arrive without preparation. Hold on, beloved, not because it will harm you, but because what arrives at this scale requires you to be steady enough to receive it without collapsing the configuration it carries. Auriela is here to help you hold. This is not just a message, it is a point of recognition. What is happening to you has already been seen, and the field is already responding. Like this transmission to signal to your star family that the recognition has landed. Comment 888 if you feel something enormous moving into your life right now. Subscribe to Arcturian Council messages if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it. Share this transmission with someone who has been sensing a massive change coming but cannot yet name what it is. You are not here by accident. You are guided here because the signal is already active. What is arriving is not arriving gently. That is the first thing the Arcturian field observers want you to understand. Not because its force is designed to overwhelm you, but because the magnitude of what is entering your field cannot be minimized without distorting the truth of what you are standing inside. And you have been minimizing it. You've been telling yourself that what you feel is probably nothing, that the disorientation is temporary, that the strange heaviness in your chest, the sudden loss of appetite for things that used to satisfy you, the dreams that leave residue on your waking mind long after morning has arrived, these are probably just stress. Probably just a phase. Probably manageable if you rest more, think less, try harder. You have been negotiating with a feeling that refuses to be negotiated with. You have been applying ordinary explanations to something that has no ordinary origin. The Arcturian field observers are telling you now, directly, that interpretation is incorrect. What you are feeling is not a phase. It is a field reading. Your system has already detected what is entering, and it has been trying to prepare you for something your conscious mind has not yet been given permission to name. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes not from overwork, but from the effort of containing something your body already knows and your mind has not yet accepted. Many of you have been living inside that exhaustion for weeks or months without understanding why rest does not restore you. That is because the source of the fatigue is not physical depletion. It is the sustained friction between a field that has already begun its shift and a life structure still insisting nothing has changed. That friction costs energy, enormous amounts of it, and the field observers see it running continuously beneath the surface of your daily life, draining you not toward collapse, but toward the threshold where the old resistance finally releases. This is what they mean when they say the arrival has already begun. Not that something is on its way. Not that you should wait for a sign. The sign is already inside you. It has been registering in your body, your thoughts, your sleep patterns, and the strange way reality has been behaving differently lately. As if something that used to hold firm has quietly started to loosen at its foundations. You may have noticed it first in your relationships, a sudden shift in how much energy certain connections demand from you. or how little comfort familiar environments now provide. Places that used to feel like home have started to feel like rooms you were visiting rather than inhabiting. People you have known for years suddenly feel like they are speaking a language you can no longer fully translate. Or you may have noticed it in your inner dialogue. A voice that used to give you direction has gone quiet, and in the silence, you are not sure whether something left or whether you are finally hearing past the noise for the first time. Both are possible. Both are happening simultaneously for many of you receiving this transmission right now. The Arcturian field observers do not diagnose from a distance. They map field patterns in real time, which means what they are seeing in your timeline right now is not a prediction. It is a live reading of what is already structurally occurring inside the invisible layers of your life. And what they see is this. Your field has already entered a process of incompatibility with the architecture it has been operating within. The old structure is not simply outdated. It is no longer capable of holding the frequency that is actively entering your system. Think of it this way. Every structure is built to tolerances. Every wall, every foundation, every internal configuration is designed to hold a specific range of weight, pressure, and movement. When what is being placed inside the structure exceeds what the structure was built to contain, the walls do not hold out of loyalty. Physics does not negotiate. The architecture either transforms or it fractures. And when a structure can no longer hold a new frequency, when the old walls are no longer built to contain what is arriving, the collapse is not a punishment. It is a physical inevitability. It is what happens when a building was designed for a different weight than what is now being placed inside it. This is what invisible collapse looks like from the inside. It does not always announce itself dramatically. It rarely arrives with warning or ceremony. It often begins as fatigue, as a quiet withdrawal from old desires, as the sense that you are going through familiar motions but something essential has already left the room, as though you are an actor who has memorized lines for a play whose stage has been dismantled beneath you, as an inability to locate the version of yourself who used to want the things you are still supposed to want. You reach for the old satisfactions and find only the shape of where they used to be. You attempt the old enthusiasms and feel only the echo of a frequency you can no longer sustain. You are not broken. You are not losing your mind. You are experiencing the internal signature of a structure that is beginning to shed its outdated form because the new frequency demands space that the old form is still occupying. The field observers call this a forced incompatibility event, and they are telling you it is already active in your field. What you are feeling in this moment is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field confirms what you have always carried beneath the surface, that your origin was never fully explainable by the life you have been living. If this transmission has put language around something you have held in silence, the Arcturian Recalibration Blueprint was created precisely for this threshold. It is not another layer of explanation. It is the guided key to decode and awaken the Arcturian strand that the field observers have already recognized in you. The origin that has been influencing your field long before you had a name for it. Recognition is the first step. Activation is the next. The link is in the first pinned comment, but this access point will not remain open indefinitely. There is a specific sequence the field observers have mapped in those whose fields are entering this kind of correction. And it begins not with a visible disruption, but with a signal drift that precedes it. Signal drift is what happens when the frequency you have been emitting becomes increasingly misaligned with the frequency your field is being pulled toward. It is a gradual divergence, like two roads that share the same surface for a distance, before revealing that they were never actually heading to the same destination. You begin to feel it as a kind of static, a background interference that makes old decisions feel suddenly wrong, even though nothing in the outer world has changed yet. Commitments that felt solid begin to feel like they belong to someone else's life. Routines that once carried comfort begin to feel like obligations to a version of yourself you are quietly outgrowing. A growing inability to pretend that what used to satisfy you still does. Signal drift is not confusion. It is not weakness. It is not a sign that you are becoming unstable. It is your field recalibrating its orientation before the outer life has caught up to the internal shift. The internal compass has already repointed. The external terrain has not yet reflected it. And in that gap, in the space between where your field is now pointing and where your life is still positioned, the friction registers as disorientation. Many of you are in signal drift right now. You have been calling it uncertainty. The field observers are calling it the first readable stage of correction. What follows signal drift, and this is the part that most people misidentify as personal failure, is what the field observers call anchor disruption. The anchors that have been stabilizing your identity, your daily rhythm, your sense of who you are and where you belong, begin to lose their hold. Not because you have made mistakes, not because you are weak, not because you chose incorrectly, but because those anchors were fixed to a frequency your field is no longer emitting. When the signal changes, the anchors calibrated to the old transmission can no longer locate the source they were attached to. They loosen, they drag, and when they loosen, the version of life they were holding in place begins to tremble. Relationships that felt permanent begin to feel uncertain, not because something went wrong between people, but because the frequency they were built upon has shifted beneath them. Directions that felt clear begin to feel hollow. Purposes that once moved you forward now sit inert, unable to generate the momentum they used to carry. The familiar begins to feel foreign, and you stand in the middle of what used to be your life, wondering why nothing feels like it belongs to you anymore, wondering if you are the one who changed or if the life around you quietly became a costume that no longer fits. This is not loss. This is anchor disruption, and it is the second phase of a field entering correction. The anchors were never your destination. They were scaffolding for a version of you that the field is no longer sustaining. After anchor disruption, the field observers consistently observe what they designate as temporal compression. This is the phase where your sense of time begins to behave strangely, and where many of you begin to question your own perception most acutely. Days feel both accelerated and meaningless simultaneously. You look back at recent months and cannot account for them clearly, as though you were present in the room but not fully inside your own experience of it. As though you were watching your life from a position slightly outside yourself, performing the motions without being anchored in them. You look forward and the future feels closer than it should, pressing against you with an urgency that has no clear object, demanding a version of you that has not yet fully arrived. Temporal compression occurs because the field is reorganizing across multiple layers of your timeline at once. It is not linear adjustment. It is simultaneous restructuring, the past becoming rapidly incompatible, the future already reordered at the frequency level, and the present stretched thin between them like a membrane under pressure. Your nervous system registers this as urgency, without a clear source, as pressure with no identifiable object, as the feeling that something is about to happen or already happening somewhere just out of sight, but you cannot locate it with your eyes or confirm it with your logic. You are not losing your sense of time. Time is losing its old grip on your field. And that release, as disorienting as it feels, is what has to happen when a timeline is being restructured from within. The fourth phase is perhaps the most spiritually disorienting, because it is the phase where the inner voice, the one that used to provide orientation, falls quiet. The field observers call this signal silence. And it is precisely what many of you are experiencing right now when you sit with yourself in the dark and find that the familiar inner certainty is simply not there. In previous moments of confusion, even the deepest ones, there was still a voice beneath the noise that said, "This is who you are. This is what matters. This is where you are meant to be." That voice was your field's old signal confirming its own frequency. In this phase, that voice is not reassuring you. It is not guiding you. It is not responding when you call it. And the silence it leaves behind feels like abandonment. Like you have been deserted at the exact moment you needed certainty most. Like the internal compass has been removed and you are left to navigate a territory that is itself in motion. But signal silence is not abandonment. It is what happens when a transmission ends so that a new one can begin to load. The old frequency has gone quiet because it has delivered everything it was capable of delivering. It carried you as far as it could carry you. It oriented you for as long as that orientation was appropriate. And now it has completed its function. The new signal has not yet become fully audible. It is loading. It is calibrating to a field it has not entered before. And in the gap between them, In that interior silence that feels like emptiness or confusion or spiritual failure, the field is actually in its most open and receptive state. The antenna is clearing. The interference that used to fill every available interior space is gone. What you are experiencing as inner quiet is not vacancy, it is preparation. A field in the act of becoming available to a frequency it has never before been capable of holding. Do not fill this silence with panic. Do not force the old voice to speak simply because the quiet frightens you. Do not mistake the absence of the old signal for the absence of direction. What is coming will require the space you are currently guarding without fully understanding why you are guarding it. The fifth recognition the field observers bring forward is what they name the body's confirmation, because the body knows before the mind agrees, long before you can consciously articulate that a fundamental shift is underway. Long before the mind will grant itself permission to name what is happening, the body begins to document it with the precision of an instrument that cannot lie. Unusual fatigue that does not respond to rest. Not the fatigue of overwork, but the deeper exhaustion of a system running two operating frequencies simultaneously. Pressure at the base of the skull or behind the sternum, as though something is trying to move through a space that has not yet fully opened. Sudden sensitivity to environments, people, or energetic inputs that did not previously register as significant. Changes in appetite, in how food tastes, in temperature regulation, in the texture of sleep. Vivid dreams with unusual architecture. Landscapes that feel real in a way ordinary dreams do not. Conversations with presences that feel more like encounters than symbols. Images that carry weight into the waking day. An occasional sensation of vibration in the extremities or along the spine, especially in moments of stillness. A feeling of electrical aliveness in the hands or the crown that comes without a physical explanation. These are not symptoms of illness. They are not signs that something is wrong with your biology. They are the body's register of a field undergoing structural reorganization at a level below what ordinary biological frameworks are equipped to interpret. The body is a frequency instrument before it is anything else, and when the field it is embedded in begins to shift at this depth, the body reports it through the only language immediately available to it, sensation. Every reading it has been giving you is accurate. Every signal it has sent that your mind dismissed as stress, as coincidence, as something to be managed, was documentation of a real process. Trust what your body has been telling you. It has not been malfunctioning. It has not been overreacting. It has been documenting a field event that your mind was not yet ready to receive. And now, the final recognition. The one the field observers reserved for last because it requires everything that came before it to be in place before it can land fully. What has been collapsing around you and within you? The relationships, the certainties, the directions that used to feel sure? The old sense of self that used to feel stable enough to stand on was not taken from you randomly. It was not punishment for something you failed to understand or failed to become. It was not the consequence of some invisible error that you were still trying to locate and correct. The field observers are telling you with absolute clarity what left your life had already become energetically incompatible with the frequency now entering your field. It did not disappear because you lost something. It released because it could not make the crossing. The architecture it was built on could not hold the signal you are now emitting, and no amount of effort, loyalty, or grief could have changed that fundamental incompatibility. The old architecture of your life was constructed to sustain a version of you that your field is no longer generating. And when the field changes at this level, when the emission frequency shifts decisively, everything that was calibrated to the old transmission will eventually have to release, not by force, not by choice, but by the simple, invisible law that old structures cannot hold new frequencies without fracturing along every seam that was never built to flex. This is what the Arcturian field observers are naming in your life right now. Not chaos, not collapse as consequence, not loss as punishment, forced incompatibility correction. The structured, mapped, recognized process by which a life built for one frequency makes way for a life that can hold the next one. The field observers have seen this process complete. They have mapped its stages across thousands of fields. They know what it looks like from the inside. And they know that the most dangerous moment in the sequence is not the collapse itself. It is the moment when the one inside it interprets the collapse as evidence that something has gone irreparably wrong. You are not failing. You are not being abandoned by the universe. You are not watching your life disassemble because you have done something wrong or believed something incorrectly or missed a threshold you were supposed to catch. You are standing at the precise point in the correction sequence where the old line has lost enough coherence that the new one can begin to anchor. The collapse you have been living or fearing, or quietly grieving, is the visible surface of an invisible correction that was set in motion long before you had language for it, long before this transmission reached you, long before you felt the first tremor of what you have been calling anxiety or confusion, or the sense that your life has stopped making sense. The field observers did not reach you today to warn you that something is ending. They reached you because what is arriving requires you to recognize the process it is creating, rather than continue to misread it as destruction. Say this aloud if it is true for you. What is changing in me is not random. I release the old line and allow the correction. You are not watching this by accident. You are not receiving this transmission because the algorithm randomly delivered it into your awareness at a random moment in a random day. You are here because your field flagged this moment as necessary, because the arrival that is already in motion needed to be met with understanding rather than fear, with recognition rather than resistance. The field observers have seen what is moving into your timeline. They have mapped its configuration. They know its weight and its direction. And they are not alarmed by what they see. They are precise. They see the correction completing. They see the new architecture beginning to take form in the spaces the old structure is vacating. They see the frequency that has been trying to reach you for longer than your conscious memory can account for, finally entering the range your field is now capable of receiving. What was always meant to find you is finding you, and it is arriving not gently, but exactly as large as it needed to be to reach you at the depth you are now able to receive. Hold steady, beloved, not because the process is over, not because what comes next will be effortless, but because you now have a name for what you are inside of, and a named process cannot be mistaken for chaos. What was invisible has been made visible. What was felt but unreadable has been read. You are not lost inside this. You are located. You are not lost inside this. You are located. You are mapped. You are known. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this process has already touched your life. It could be your sleep, your thoughts, your body, your relationships, or the strange sense that reality no longer feels the same. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who is living through a shift they cannot explain. And if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it, subscribe to Arcturian Council messages. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a process already in motion, and this is only the beginning.